Thank you for tuning in to Unstoppable Angels. My name is Michelle Van Etten. I am your host. Here we take on those topics that not everybody wants to talk about. We're talking about turning our pain into power and becoming unstoppable. Today's guest is Mary Lou Rodriguez. Mary Lou Rodriguez is a passionate professional master hypnotherapist, a brain training expert. She is committed to healing our world and thrives on helping people live unstoppable lives. She has spent the last 4 years helping high-level online entrepreneurs, celebrities, leaders, and visionaries of the world shift their stories, upgrade their beliefs, transform their minds with the power of hypnosis. She has been called a mindset ninja, brain coach, and known as the secret weapon because she has helped thousands of people across the world overcome their subconscious limitations. Mary Lou is certified and licensed with the National Guild of Hypnotists. Her advanced hypnotherapy training incorporates brain-based techniques, breathing tools, brain hacks to train the beautiful mind. Since her love for the brain continues to grow, she has decided to go back to school and become a neuroscientist. Mary Lou, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. What an honor.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here today. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, how did you get to where you are? So let's go back, since everything happens before you're 7, right? Let's go back to the beginning and see where Mary Lou came from.
Yeah. So I know I shared this with you, but, I should say, so some of my first memories, my parents are from Mexico and I'm first generation born in this country. And my first memories are of being in the strawberry fields and just kind of playing in the strawberry fields while my siblings and my mom were picking strawberries. And not only was it strawberries, but it was blackberries, it was blueberries, it was cucumbers, it was walnuts. So during the seasons of the year, my first memories were of working hard. And those memories, so I grew up in outside of a small town in Portland, Oregon. And at that time, there were very few Latinos. Now there's a lot of Latinos that live in that area. But at that time, when I was growing up, there were very few Latino families. So really early on, I knew that I was poor and I knew that I was different. And my parents spoke a different language. We lived right behind a little tiny convenience store called Plaid Pantry in a duplex apartment complex that I remember walking to every day. I'd walk by all of the fancy houses and then we'd get to my little neighborhood. And I remember I just remember thinking, this is where I live. And so I knew that I was different. And we spoke a different language. And so, just starting off, I think about it now, I learned really early on that the odds were against me. And I learned really early on that I was a poor kid. And I learned really early on that I was treated differently. Even though Spanish was my first language, I was put in a program called ESL, which is English as a second language. So I just felt like life was really hard from the time that I was little. And that was the attitude that I carried with me throughout my entire life up until 4 years ago.
That life is really hard. I know we've talked about this and I know it's a hard one to go to, but from when you were younger, something that might have shaped part of your future because you had to deal with abuse and other things that you went through. Can you let the listeners here know a little bit about your story on that
Right. Yeah. So I can talk about the sexual abuse now and the physical abuse and the emotional abuse. For a long time, I couldn't talk about those subjects. And the way that I dealt with it was through alcohol. But there are so many memories. There are so many memories that I can share with you. But I think the one that stands out the most was I remember going to school. So my stepdad used to pull my ears. That was a normal thing for our family, was to have our ears pulled. when we were disobedient. And so one time he pulled my ear so hard that it actually, like, my ear, the back of my skin tore and my ear was bleeding, and it would open up quite a bit. And so I was at school and my ear was bleeding, and I went to the nurse's office and she asked me, like, what happened? And I didn't know how to make up a lie about the back of my ear. And so I had shared that my stepdad had done that to me. And I remember it was a really big deal. And they called in my mom, and I was so ashamed. Like, I felt like I couldn't hide the lie. I didn't know how to hide the lie because I didn't want all of this attention. I knew it was wrong. And it was just, I just wanted it to go away. So I think one of the first memories was learning that it wasn't okay. Like, it wasn't okay to tell people that I was hurting. And I knew that I was going to get in trouble for that. And my mom, bless her heart, like, she just didn't know how to handle this. Like, she was an immigrant in this country trying to figure out, like, how to even speak the language, much less try to figure out how I can acclimate and have a normal childhood with the types of circumstances that I was having. So I don't blame my mom, but there was a lot of pain for me growing up, a lot of pain. And I just, like I said, like, I learned that life was fucking hard. And that was the mentality that I had all throughout my teenage years, throughout my 20s, throughout my 30s. I didn't know how to get out of my own way. So I turned to substances like alcohol to try to numb the sadness that I felt, because I always felt like something was wrong with me. I always felt like I was different and that I wasn't accepted. I wasn't a part of. And so that is looking at your face. I'm like,
I know exactly how you felt. Yeah.
That's what I struggled with for a really long time.
Hiding. So how, as you were going through school, did you go to college? And you did?
I did.
Did you get a scholarship? Where did you go to college?
I did. I received a scholarship. I went to Portland State University. And even though my parents didn't tell me higher education was important, because they didn't understand that college was important, I had a girlfriend whose mom was a hippie, and she was always telling me and my best friend at the time, Diana, she was like, you guys need to go to college. And so she planted that seed really early on. So I did end up going to Portland State University and studying international studies. And that's when I started dabbling in alcohol. Yeah. At college. Mm-hmm.
To numb the pain. It seems to be, a way that most people handle situations that we're not really supposed to have to handle, but all of us have those stories. It's wild when you start to listen. I have not found one person yet who is unstoppable. And you even have the Unstoppable Mind podcast. It's so awesome. But I have not found one person yet who is unstoppable, whose story does not somewhat have the same kind of ideas about it. We might have different parts to our story that made us who we are, but it was that grinding and that grit that made us step back in and say, you know what, we're not done yet. We've got more to give. And that failure was just not an option. You're going to fail, but just keep failing forward and it's all going to work itself out. Right. So let's go a little further. You said 4 years ago, but there's got to be some things in between that got you into hypnotherapy. So what happened in between that was some turning points for you?
Yeah. So alcohol became a big part of my life. And not just a big part of my life, it became my way of life. And I wanted to quit drinking, and I didn't know how. I had tried AA originally. I tried all the things. I tried stopping it. I tried willpower. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how many times I tried willpower. And then I remember somebody talking about hypnosis. And I didn't know anything about it at the time. I went online, I went to Groupon, and I found a hypnotherapist that was in my area. And so I went to see this hypnotherapist. And I went to see this hypnotherapist with so many problems, this poor woman, But my main problem was I wanted to stop drinking. And I remember she told me, she said, Mary Lou, alcohol's not your problem. Now, I almost fell over and out of my chair because I had almost lost everything up until that point because of alcohol. I was only drinking almost like 20 hours out of the day. I had a really severe problem. And I'd lost my marriage and my business and my family. And I was almost living, the next thing would have been living out of my car. So she told me, alcohol isn't your problem. She's like, it's a symptom of your problems, but really it's the physical and the sexual abuse and the emotional abuse that you had experienced as a child. And that's where I want to help you. And that was my first exposure to hypnosis. And I didn't really understand at that time what was happening in my brain and why I was changing. I just loved it. And I was committed to it. Like I was committed to living a sober life. So I was all in. And when we were done with our sessions, like I felt like a really new woman. I had a new leash on life. And I began to rebuild my relationship with my mom because my mom had cut me out of her life. Nobody wanted me around because I was just a mess. I mean, I was a drunk mess. And so when I got sober, I began asking my mom for another opportunity to be a part of her life. And it was one of the first times that I actually had peace. I had some peace. I didn't feel like I was fighting my demons. Like I felt like I had some peace, and I got to know my mom in a really special way. And at that time, when I was getting to know my mom again and laughing and spending time with her, I didn't know that those were going to be the last moments of my life with my mom. All I knew was that I was enjoying this time with her. And I had 6 months of sobriety. My mom had a stroke and she went into a coma. And those are the best memories of my life, is being able to like say that I was sober completely 100%. I was present with my mom and I got to spend so much time with her. And when my mom was diagnosed with the stroke and the doctors told us that she was not going to come out of a coma, I just had this desire inside of me. I was like, I wanted to fight for her to live. And what happened was that my mom actually was in a coma for 2 years. We ended up taking her home to her home. We turned her master bedroom into like a hospital suite. We moved all of the equipment into her bedroom. I became her primary caregiver. I quit my job and I moved into my mom's home. And I was like, I'm just going to care for my mama. I'm just going to take care of her. And I did. And after a year of my mom being in a coma, I remember sitting there and looking at her and thinking, what about hypnosis? I was like, what if I could talk to the deepest parts of my mom's subconscious mind? And what if I could hypnotize her to come back to waking consciousness? And so that's like divine timing, right? Like that's the divine moment.
That's like amazing. I mean, gosh, I'm really going to cry myself here.
It was so incredible. I'd never thought about it before. And it was in that moment where I was like, maybe I can hypnotize my mom. And I didn't really understand, like I didn't know the brain then really. All I had was hope and desire and love. So that is why I became a hypnotherapist, Michelle. That's like the long way.
No,
I became a hypnotherapist. I began studying hypnosis because I wanted to bring my mom back out of a coma. That was why.
So she was in a coma for 2 years, but she was not. Did you notice that could she hear you? Did she give any sign?
That's the crazy thing. It's like, I now know that I never needed hypnosis to talk to my mom, but it was part of my path. It was the thing that has led me to my dharma, to my purpose. I never needed hypnosis to talk to my mama. All I needed to do was talk to her. But hypnosis, I didn't know it, but hypnosis was going to be such a big part of my life. I had no clue at the time. I just did it because I wanted to talk to my mama.
Aww.
And
that's so sweet. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. All right, I can do this.
Yes.
You know, I had a lot of not animosity, but I just had things that I had held on to that weren't real. They were my own, I guess my own story I had made up in a sense
Mhm.
about what was real and what wasn't as far as relationships go. And I didn't have the greatest relationship with my mom. I mean, I talked to her and stuff, but now I want to hear from her. Like, I want to talk to her, not at her. And I want to I'm going out of town this weekend with my husband. We're going to a race, but after that, I plan on going to see my mom because
Yeah.
she is also sick and recently must have had another heart attack, they think, because she's very tired and everything. She's in congestive heart failure. So I understand that need to be there to, be supportive. It's very hard. It rips at your soul.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're into hypnotizing people or yourself, like learning about this. And that had to be so exciting. You're doing like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to learn it. But what was that defining moment that made it from doing it to help your mom to creating this life path that's just truly amazing?
Yeah. So when my mom passed, and my sister and I were on each side of her as we witnessed her last breath, it was the most beautiful moment seeing my mom. And I knew at that point, after 2 years, she wanted to leave her physical body, that she was ready. And that I honestly think that she was holding on for me. She was holding on for me to get it together. She was holding, and I didn't know it then, but I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, all the pieces fall together. So when my mom passed, I decided, I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? And I'm like, I love hypnosis so much. It works so well on me. And I'm like, maybe I can make a living doing hypnosis. I was like, maybe I can do this. And so I took the leap of faith and I opened my business and I opened my doors and I started working with addictions in the beginning because I understood addictions. And I started being able to help a lot of people. And I started just falling in love with learning more and more about the brain and how to help people get unstuck. And then I became so popular because I was helping people have the transformation that they wanted in their life. I was helping them have the results that they wanted in their life. And I was realizing this really isn't hard. It's just people don't know how to get out of their own way. And so I started learning more and more about the brain. And then my business just really started to take off. And then I started having a waiting list. And I'm like, I don't know how to help people. I was like, I know how to help people, but I didn't know how to help the masses. I was like, I'm helping one person at a time, but more, I'm like, I can teach this to more than just one person. How can I serve? Like, how can I really help as many people as I know that I'm being called to, because they're coming to me for a reason. So that's when I started doing the membership. I was like, I want to help as many people as I can. And in my membership, we reprogram so every month, everybody gets a hypnosis audio. And every month we have a theme. So like money. In January, it was on habits. February, it was on releasing fear of criticism and judgment. This month, it's all on money. We're doing money mindset and we're listening to the hypnosis audio. And then I'm doing contests. I do Zooms on how to help people get unstuck about money, about whatever it is. Last month was a lot of fun because we did a detox challenge, a 7-day detox challenge, which meant that you could not think badly about yourself for 7 days. And it was so much fun because people were like, because it's become such a habit for us to tell ourselves what we can't do, who we're not being, how we look. It was such a great opportunity for me. And I always participate in these challenges because I learned so much. And it's just so much fun to see people really be able to thrive and grow and feel unstoppable. And
I love that. Unstoppable is my favorite word. That's awesome. So you have your group and you do all these different challenges and you have all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
What is one great tip you can tell us about money?
Yeah. Oh, it's so with money, it's interesting because I didn't realize that my conditioning, that my programming. So I grew up thinking I was broke. And I didn't realize I took that identity of being broke into my adult years. And so I used to say things like, I can't afford that. I can't afford that. I can't go on vacation. That's too expensive. Oh, that is so expensive. So what's happening is that what you're doing when you say things like that is you continue to program scarcity and lack into your mind. You continue to program the thing that you don't want to believe about money over and over and over again by how you talk about it. So one of the first tips that I have for people is, what kind of relationship do you want with money? And they'll say, I want a lot of it. And then I'll say, well, then talk about it like you have a lot of it. Like, start to change the way that you talk about money. And that was my biggest eye opener, is when I realized I'm always programming myself by what I think and what I say. So what is it that I want to believe about myself? I started telling myself I was unstoppable 2 years ago. I'm like, I want the identity of somebody who's a badass in the world. Nobody's going to give me that identity. Nobody's going to do the work for me to feel unstoppable. So I was like, I know that I can program that into my mind with hypnosis. So you don't need, you do. Hypnosis is a great accelerator, but you can also just tell yourself what you want to believe.
Yeah, I do a lot with hypnosis myself. And I know money's like it's a frequency, it's an energy. And so if you allow that energy to flow through you, then more comes to you.
Yes.
And I've been living that way for a very long time. And it's kind of fun because you don't really think about it anymore. It's sort of like, okay.
It becomes who you are.
What was that?
It becomes who you are.
Yeah. It's who you are. And I'll catch myself every once in a while being like, oh, I can't. Oh, yes, I can. Because if I can't right now, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I won't let that stop me.
Yes, I know. That's beautiful. I love that. It's so good. I won't let that stop me. That's a mindset. That's what you believe. That's what you believe.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not letting that stop me. That's just details. We'll deal with details later.
Yeah.
Keep the mind flat and mind straight.
Yeah, I think that when I used to hear, so I'm very analytical. And so when I heard that money is energy, I was always confused by that. I was like, what does that mean? Like, how does that translate, energy and money? And what I realized, like, through the work that I've done around my own money mindset when it comes to money, because I was raised broke. I grew up poor, and I really believed that was going to be my life. And I hated that about myself, and I didn't know how to change it. But one of the things that I now understand when it comes to money and energy is, and this is how I talk about it, is the way that you feel about money. How do you feel about money? Because if you feel good about money, money is going to flow right to you. And so it's working those layers. Like, how do you pay your bills? Do you pay your bills with gratitude, or do you pay your bills from not enough? How do you buy your groceries? Like, all of that matters. How do you look at your bank account? Do you look at your bank account, no matter what the amount is, and say, I'm so abundant, I'm so grateful? Or do you look at your bank account and go, because that's how you feel about money. So that's the work that we do on reprogramming the subconscious. I want people to have empowering money beliefs. I want them to feel unstoppable when it comes to money. And that's always my goal. I want everybody to be unstoppable in the world.
And I like to find those unstoppable angels and feature them, because they are truly, you guys are just amazing. Each person that I've interviewed, one of my girlfriends that I interviewed, Tammy, she is doing stuff with the mind as well, mind mapping.
Yeah.
And her company is actually looking at the colors and the energy that the body puts off. Yeah. As you have your feelings. Yeah. So they are literally in the process of proving that your feelings have and emit an energy, a color, and everything. And so they're right there. They've got all of this going together. And I'm like, it's so cool to see this, because when you can see it scientifically and prove it, it's like you're with the neuroscience, this is going to be a game changer, because you'll be able to tell, you'd be able to tell the energy of a room without even like just walking in, you'd be able to see the colors of it. How crazy is that? That's like mind blowing.
I love it.
I'm like,
I love it. And when I started practicing hypnosis, I didn't realize that what I was doing was practicing neuroplasticity. I didn't understand that I was helping people's brains grow and change. And now more doctors are talking about hypnosis as a really effective tool, more neuroscientists. There's research. I'm always now I know how to look up research because I'm going back to school. So now I know how to look up research to back up what I'm teaching or what I'm sharing about. And I really love that. I love that hypnosis is it's because you're in a relaxed state when you're in hypnosis. So you've been in hypnosis before, but maybe some of the people in your audience haven't. But at the beginning of, and I call them journeys, a hypnosis journey. At the beginning of a hypnosis journey, I take you through a series of exercises to relax the mind and the body. And when you're relaxed, and then in hypnosis, you become extremely focused and you're open to learning. I call it learning. Some people call it suggestibility, but I call it learning. You become open to learning. That's neuroplasticity, baby. You're creating new neural pathways. And so I have a whole process where I teach people and teach other hypnotherapists, because that's one of the other programs that I do. It's called Hypnothrive, where I teach other people how to create long-lasting transformation. And I'm having a blast.
That's amazing. I love it. I know that you have a challenge that you want to offer.
Yes, thank you. I'm like,
know about this challenge. I'm really excited to hear about this challenge you have to offer.
Yes. So I'm offering, so March 21st, we are going to be doing a 7-day brain hack to attract money challenge. Because what hypnosis really is it's a brain hack. It's like rocket fuel. Because you are deeply relaxed, you are open to new beliefs. That's what I call them new money beliefs. And so part of this challenge is getting a hypnosis audio called I'm Already Wealthy and Abundant. It's so good. I just listened to it earlier today and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I can really tune in and create such amazing audios. So part of this challenge is going to be receiving a hypnosis audio and listening to the hypnosis audio every day. And then I'm going to do 3 lives on how to get unstuck when it comes to money. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And the best part about it was originally I was going to charge. And then I decided I feel so abundant. I want to make this challenge free for everyone. So the challenge, yes, I know.
I'm gonna do it. I'm in. I'm all in.
I think there's already 200 people that I just started promoting it last Friday. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I love teaching people how to get out of their own way, how to stop the self-sabotage, how to stop the fear of success or the fear of failure, like how to really live their best lives because it's possible.
That was a big one for me. It wasn't fear of failure. It was fear of success. Like, okay, well, if I do really, really well, then I'm going to have a lot more to do.
It makes sense.
Yeah. And so I had to get out of my own way and go, okay, if I do really, really well and I have a lot more to do, that means that I'm doing what God told me to do and I'm helping more people and I'm being of service. And it's not like, that's more. That's like, I get to expand my plate and be there for more people. And I really, really had to learn and take that to heart. It's like, that's a totally different way of looking at it because it is it's like, okay, I'm putting myself out there. I'm not really scared if I fail because if I do, I'll just keep going. Yeah. But if I keep going, how big will it get? Like,
right. Really big and really amazing.
And then I have to remind myself that as you grow, you do grow. You as a person are growing. So you are basically only going to grow as far as you go, right? So right. You got to keep growing all the time. That's always been something that I'm really big into is keeping that going. Yeah. So we will have a link where you guys can sign up for free and take this challenge with me and become unstoppable with money and in abundance. So we're going to have so much fun with that. So now let's look at your last 4 years. What have been some of the biggest highlights?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that one of the biggest awarenesses that I didn't know that I was doing was I was such a victim to my circumstances. Now, I grew up believing that I was a victim, and I was. I was a victim. And I didn't know how to stop that way of thinking. I felt like the world owed me something. I felt like, I was hurt, I was harmed, nobody took care of me, that kind of thing. So I had a real victim mentality. But what's interesting about victim mentality is that it's not conscious. You're not going around saying, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. It's very subtle, it's unconscious. And I didn't understand that I was a victim to my circumstances. So, and what I mean by that is that, especially like when it came to money, like because I didn't have money, I thought that I had to feel broke. I didn't realize that I could still feel good about money, even though I didn't have it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I was like a total victim to everything. I was a victim to how much I had to pay for rent. I was a victim because I didn't have a boyfriend at the time. I was looking for somebody to take care of me. That's what I was really looking for. And so I felt like a victim all the time. And that absolutely was my energy. That was absolutely how I was living my life. I was a victim. I was an alcoholic. I was abused. And therefore, I'm not going to be happy in life. Now, I wasn't saying that consciously, but I kept choosing to be unhappy. I didn't know how to break through that. So within the last 4 years, I have learned how to be empowered. I have learned how to turn my pain into my power. I have learned how to step into the identity of somebody who can take care of her own badass self, that I don't need somebody else to take care of me, that I can absolutely do it, and that I can learn it, and that I'm going to make mistakes, and that's okay. But I'm going to be empowered today because I know now that I get to choose that. Even though my circumstances are what they are, I still have choice. That was the biggest.
I completely agree. As we're going to the gas station these days and you see it rising by 20 cents every, half hour, it seems like, I still smile and say, even though I have this going on right now and we're seeing all this, I'm so grateful that we are in abundance, right? And that we can do this. Yes. And even people who are not that way still can and should be saying the same thing, acting the same way, because you don't have to be a victim to circumstance anymore.
Yes.
And I think that's just one of the most beautiful things that hopefully people get to take away, is that that is not necessary at all.
Yeah. And what happens is that so what happened for me was that I was like, wait a minute, I'm always seeing things from lack because I know I was programmed that way. Okay, I'm going to stop doing that. Instead, I'm going to do exactly what you said, which is I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to be grateful for everything that I have. And what that did was it started creating gratitude inside of me. And what that did was I started seeing all of the abundance that I did have in my life. And all of a sudden, my energy started changing. All of a sudden, I was like, I remember looking at my bank account and thinking to myself, can I feel rich with $200? I didn't know it was a choice, that I could choose to still feel abundant and rich, even though my circumstances were what they were. So this is what I talk about. And this is what I teach about, how to be empowered, regardless of the amount of money that you have. And then it begins to change, because all of a sudden it's not about how little you have, it's about how much you have. Oh my gosh, I have $200. And it grows. It grows. That's what's so beautiful. So you can tell I love this stuff. I love it.
You're definitely very passionate about it. It's so awesome. I was talking about, you do have a podcast. It's The Unstoppable Mind, correct?
Yeah, I do. Oh my gosh, I've been having so much fun on the podcast. And that was really interesting for me because I remember I knew intuitively that I could feel that it was time for me to do a podcast. And yet I had all the stories, right? I was like, what am I going to talk about for an hour? Who's going to listen to me? I had all of those stories that did not serve me. And what I realized about the podcast is, number one, I get to choose topics that I love to talk about. Wait a minute, I get to talk about what I love to talk about. Number two, I get to decide the length of the podcast. It doesn't have to be an hour long. I don't have to do what everybody's doing. I get to do my podcast on my terms. And guess what? It's blowing up.
I love it. I was listening to it today. I was like, oh, I like this one. Oh, I like this one. Okay. I think I listened to like 5 episodes today.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Thank you.
I just want to thank you so much for coming today. And once again, we're going to put the link to the challenge, and it starts March 21st, correct?
It's March 21st. I want to invite everybody to come and join me because we are going to have so much fun learning how to get out of our own way and how to break through when it comes to money.
That sounds amazing. Can you give us one quote that has served you in your journey?
Yeah, I think that here it is. I'll give you the one that I keep in front of me. Today is the most magnificent day of my life. Health, wealth, happiness, love, success, prosperity, and money come to me in great abundance. This is how I live my life. Every single day, I look at that.
Well, thank you so much for being our guest today, Mary Lou. And you are definitely an unstoppable angel. And I'm so thankful that you came and joined us today.
Thank you for having me. It's so much fun. I love what you're doing in the world, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. Thank you
so much.